The sky split open with a crack that shook the bones of the house, lightning clawing through the dark like a beast breaking free. Rain didn't just fall, it roared, a relentless cascade hammering the roof of Daniel Harper's modest home in Willow Creek. He stood at the back door, watching his rain barrels gulp down the deluge, their forest green shells glinting under the storm's fleeting flashes. A small VY Tory against nature's wrath, and a quiet nod to his engineering roots. But as the thunder rolled, a different kind of storm brewed in his mailbox, a crisp, official envelope from the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, its seal practically sneering. The note inside was venom-dressed in bureaucracy. His barrels, tucked discreetly behind a cedar fence, were an eyesore VY olating the neighborhood's pristine aesthetic. Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew the sender before he saw the signature Marjorie Klein, the HOA's iron-fisted matriarch, whose obsession with perfection could make a saint curse. Daniel and his wife, Sarah, had chosen Willow Creek for its promise of peace, tree-lined streets, tidy lawns, and a quick drive to his job, designing municipal water systems. But beneath the polished surface lurked a cabal of petty despots, led by Marjorie, who wielded her clipboard like a scepter. She'd once find a neighbor for a mailbox painted 2VY Brant, a shade of blue. Now, she'd set her sights on Daniel's rain barrels, practical, legal, and hidden from VYEW unless someone was prowling with intent. As the storm raged on, Daniel stared at the letter, torn between crumpling it into the trash and plotting something bolder. Spite flickered in his chest, but so did strategy. This wasn't just about barrels. It was about a principle worth fighting for. The trouble had started months earlier, after a summer so dry the ground cracked like old leather. Daniel, ever the problem solver, installed the barrels to capture rainwater for his garden, a patchwork of tomatoes and zucchini Sarah tended with pride. Water was precious in Willow Creek, where flash floods could turn streets into rivers one day and leave reservoirs parched the next. The barrels were a no-brainer, eco-friendly, cost-saving, and compliant with city codes. He'd chosen their muted color to blend with the foliage, built a lattice screen draped in ivy, and positioned them behind the garage. Unless Marjorie was scaling fences or deploying spies, there was no way she'd spotted them. Yet here was her letter, citing a vague HOA rule section 12.4.2, subsection that didn't even reference water storage. It was personal, Daniel realized, and Marjorie didn't play fair. The morning after the storm, Willow Creek glistened under a deceptive calm. Neighbors swept debris from driveways. Their homes spared the worst of the flooding thanks to quirks of elevation and drainage. Daniel's yard was a fortress of foresight. His barrels had siphoned off enough runoff to keep his garden thriving while others slogged through mud. He was savoring a coffee when the HOA's envelope caught his eye again, its smug logo practically daring him to act. He dialed Marjorie's number, expecting a fight but hoping for reason. Her voice slithered through the phone, syrupy and patronizing. "Daniel, dear, city laws are one thing, but Willow Creek has standards. Your barrels clash with our VY Shown of elegance. 10 days to remove them, or fines begin." Before he could argue, the line went dead. Stunned, Daniel paced the kitchen, the phone still warm in his hand. Elegance? His barrels eased the strain on the neighborhood's overtaxed storm drains, which routinely failed during heavy rains. Last year, the community clubhouse, a gaudy monument to Marjorie's social ambitions, had flooded ankle-deep, ruining her annual gala. Daniel's system ensured his runoff didn't add to the problem, yet Marjorie saw it as a personal affront. He drafted an appeal, meticulous as always, including photos of the barrel's concealment, city rebates for water conservation, and a diagram showing how his setup reduced overflow. He emailed it to the HOA board, expecting at least one member to see sense. 2 days later, a curt reply arrived: appeal denied. Remove immediately. Marjorie's signature was a flourish of triumph. Frustration gave way to curiosity. Daniel dug into the HOA's records, cross-referencing bylaws with city ordinances. He found a pattern: Marjorie's complaints often targeted newcomers who dared to think for themselves. But another detail caught his eye. The clubhouse, her pride and joy, sat at the neighborhood's lowest point, its drainage system a relic from the 1980s. It stayed dry only because uphill residents like Daniel managed their runoff. If someone stopped or redirected their water flow, the clubhouse could become a swamp. The idea was reckless, tempting, and perfectly legal if done right. Daniel wasn't one for vengeance, but he was an engineer, and engineers solve problems with precision. He called his old college friend, Lucas Reed, a stormwater expert with a penchant for mischief. Over beers in Daniel's garage, Lucas studied the property map Daniel had pulled from city archives. "You're saying you could nudge the water toward the clubhouse without breaking a single law?" Lucas asked, grinning. "Hell, Dan, you could flood their poker night and call it GRAVYT's fault." They laughed, but the plan took shape. Years ago, a community garden had existed behind the clubhouse, fed by an irrigation channel long since abandoned. Daniel could re-VYV it, subtly redirecting his runoff to follow its natural path straight to Marjorie's doorstep. It wasn't sabotage, it was a lesson in consequences. Daniel worked methodically, as if designing a bridge. He studied HOA rules, property lines, and historical surveys, ensuring every move was above board. By day, he played the compliant neighbor, even swapping one barrel for a decoy planter to throw off Marjorie's patrols. By night, he installed his system. Underground pipes, hidden valves, and gravel line channels masked by landscaping. It was in VY Cybele, elegant and unstoppable. Meanwhile, Marjorie's minion self-style compliance officers in neon vests ramped up their snooping. One, a dour man named Harold Voss, leaned over Daniel's fence to snap a photo, only to trigger a motion-activated sprinkler. The splash hit the Willow Creek Facebook group by noon, Harold's bath time, with a cascade of laughing emojis. The first test came with a storm that rolled in like an invading army. Thunder shook the windows as rain battered the neighborhood. Daniel watched from his porch, heart pounding, as his system hummed to life. Water flowed through his channels, bypassing his barrels and slipping toward the old garden path. By midnight, the clubhouse's lights flickered, then died. Water crept through its doors, pooling on the hardwood where Marjorie hosted her wine tastings. Daniel sipped his coffee the next morning, strolling past the chaos with feigned innocence. Marjorie was a whirlwind of rage, shouting at workers as fans roared to dry the sodden carpets. A water line stained the sidewalk like a signature. Daniel didn't smile, not yet. The flood was a warning shot, but Daniel wasn't done. He refined his system, adding slow-release valves for precision. Lucas dropped by with donuts, toasting the storm whisperer, as their VY-EU'd grainy footage of the clubhouse's plight. The HOA sent a vague email blaming unprecedented rainfall and aging infrastructure. Daniel smirked. They hadn't seen anything yet. A week of rain was forecast, perfect for his endgame. He camouflaged his drainage endpoints with ferns and scattered leaves to mask his work, knowing Marjorie would come for him. Sure enough, a new letter arrived, accusing him of suspected drainage violations and demanding an inspection. Daniel taped a reply to his gate, "No entry without legal cause." HOA isn't the police. It was a gauntlet thrown. Marjorie escalated, sending Harold and his ilk to patrol daily. Daniel countered with motion lights and a speaker that blared a dog's bark, turning his yard into a fortress of deterrence. When the next storm hit, he dialed up the flow. The clubhouse drowned again, its sump pump choking as water seeped into walls. Marjorie argued with a plumber in the rain, gesturing wildly toward Daniel's house, but she had no proof. His system was a ghost, hidden beneath flower beds and mulch. Neighbors began to whisper, noting Daniel's dry yard against the clubhouse's swamp. They called him the rain tamer, half in jest, half in awe. The final storm was a monster, 7 inches of rain forecast over 3 days. Daniel fine-tuned his valves, ensuring the water would hit the clubhouse like a surgical strike. On Friday, the rain began softly, then built to a roar. From his porch, Daniel watched the gutters overflow, his channels guiding the deluge with ruthless efficiency. By Saturday, the clubhouse was a lost cause, lights out, caution tape up, and the hum of industrial vacuums fighting a losing battle. Marjorie was nowhere to be seen, an absence that felt like surrender. On Monday, her retaliation landed. A cease and desist letter accusing Daniel of environmental sabotage and threatening fines and expulsion from HOA votes. Lucas laughed over pizza. "She's got nothing, Dan. You've got her cornered." Daniel prepared for war, compiling a binder thick with EVY Denke, city codes, drainage maps, photos of his legal setup, and a letter from city engineer praising his conservation efforts. The HOA called an emergency meeting, relocated to a library because the clubhouse reeked of mildew. Marjorie arrived, clutching a folder of blurry photos and a hand-drawn map that looked like a child's scribble. She ranted about rogue neighbors and attacks on community values. Daniel stood, calm as stone, and opened his binder. He cited laws, presented rebates, and showed satellite images pro-VYing the clubhouse's flooding predated his barrels. The real culprit? HOA neglect of the drainage system, hidden under decorative grates for Marjorie's aesthetic whims. A board member, Claire Nguyen, broke the silence. "The city's investigating our drains," she said. "They found illegal covers Marjorie's orders." The room froze. Daniel's EVY Denke was airtight, his system a model of compliance. The board dropped Marjorie's claims, commended Daniel's ingenuity, and launched a probe into her overreach. Neighbors applauded as Marjorie stormed out, her heels echoing like gunfire. The VY Tory was sweet, but the final storm sealed it. That weekend, the rain came harder than ever, and the clubhouse was condemned by noon, its foundation compromised by years of ignored runoff. Marjorie watched from her car, silent, then drove away. Rumors spread she was selling her home, her reign shattered. Willow Creek rebuilt, slowly. The clubhouse rose anew, with proper drains and rain barrels of its own. A plaque went up, sustainability over vanity. Daniel's barrels stood proud at his bash, where neighbors toasted with wine and laughter. Marjorie's house sold to a young couple who planted a garden, blissfully unaware of the war it had sparked. Daniel stood on his porch, Sarah at his side, watching the sunset glint off the barrels. The rain had stopped, but the lesson lingered. Common sense, like water, finds its way. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.